Hello, welcome to Lost and Found No More Secrets. My name is Heidi Billingsley Keuper, and I am the host of the show. I am a genetic genealogist with DNAngels. DNAngels is a dedicated nonprofit organization helping people to discover their biological truth. Whether they are adopted, an NPE, meaning not parent expected, donor conceived, or they just never knew who their biological parent is, we're there to help. Join us on today's episode as we explore the powerful journey of one of our very own clients, following their path from feeling lost to finally being found. Discover how they reclaim their sense of identity, proving that one sense of identity is more important than someone else's secrets. Hello, welcome to Lost and Found No More Secrets. My name is Heidi, and I'm with my co-host today, Cindy, who is also a genetic genealogist and happens to be my sister. Hello, Cindy.
Hi, how are you? I am so excited.
Oh my gosh, I can barely stand it. So we have I know I say this every time, but you have to stay tuned to the show because this is amazing. Cindy and I already had to go grab our Kleenex. Make sure you have yours ready. We have a lot. It's really going to be just a huge celebration. So excited about it. So we had a guest, John. He was season 1, episode 11. And John is an adoptee. He always knew that he was adopted. He had ideal parents, but he always had the curiosity of who his biological parents were. Did he have any siblings? Who does he look like? Because he didn't have any siblings growing up. He was an only child. So he began the search, and I remember that he had figured out who his birth mother was. He had hired an intermediary to go and open up the court records, and he was able to get a name. But no one knew where she was at. She kind of turned out to be missing, so to say. We don't know what happened to her. So John worked with Jennifer, who is an amazing genetic genealogist. They have, just fell in love with each other. They are it's just very close. And she was able to find John's paternal family as well. So that's kind of where we had left off. I want to bring John up, say hello to John, and see what's new with him.
Hi there.
Hi, John.
Hi.
Hi, glad to be here.
I'm so glad. And I'm glad that you're sporting your DNAngels gear.
Yep, DNA doesn't lie.
It does not.
Does it? So, John, that's where we had left off on the last show, where you were very much involved with part of your maternal family. You had your cousin Rick on the show with you, who is amazing. I actually listened back to the show today, and I just thought he's so special. You had a couple decent paternal matches, but you were just a little bit unsure about reaching out to your paternal family. Is that correct?
Yes, I was. Maybe we can chalk that up to, fear of rejection. Being an adoptee, that's a big thing with us. And that was probably part of it. I was worried about not being accepted. Yeah.
Right. So when the show wrapped up, behind the scenes, we just sat and just chatted, and we have an amazing liaison team here at DNAngels, and they do a really great job of, we always prefer that the person, if they are able to reach out to their biological family, but there's some people that just can't do it, and that's absolutely fine. It's up to them. But in those cases, we do have people that are really amazing at it. But before I go too much into that, Jennifer has a letter for you, John, that we'd like to read.
Yeah, so obviously we like to have Jennifer here, but she had a prior commitment before this was scheduled, so she couldn't be here. But she really wanted to be here to meet all of you guys virtually. I'm going to be doing my best to stand in for her today. But she asked me to share a message with you. So if you don't mind, I'm going to read this, and this is directly from Jennifer. John, Being a part of your journey has been incredibly rewarding. Your resilience, your compassion, and enthusiasm has had a profound impact on me. I love receiving your updates and sharing them with the other search angels because you exemplify the very reason we do what we do. Tonight, I'm sending you lots of virtual hugs and probably shedding a few joyful tears. Thank you for sharing some of the already written chapters of your life with me, and an even bigger thanks for allowing me to collaborate with you on the exciting new developments for the next chapters. And to John's brothers and sisters, those of us seeking to discover our roots must face the possibility of rejection or exclusion. The journey can be filled with hope, pain, and a sense of vulnerability, but sometimes leads to heartwarming reminder of our shared humanity. When our clients share that their newly found families welcome them with open arms, we feel a deep sense of gratitude. Thank you for setting an example of openness and curiosity as you embrace your new big brother. I'm glad you will have the chance to share stories about your wonderful father with him, and I wish you a peaceful and fulfilling time of connection. Your angel, Jennifer.
Wow.
Isn't that amazing? She's amazing. We all love Jennifer.
I have to catch my breath. That was touching.
Very much so, yeah. I hope I can just fill her shoes tonight.
Well, you guys all are wonderful. You're all kind and compassionate and caring, and I couldn't imagine a better group of people doing this, and being volunteers on top of all that is magnificent. So thank you all so much for what you do. You probably have no clue how deeply you affect people.
You're welcome. It's really our honor too. I mean, we go to bed at night. We feel pretty good about what we did that day. So, John, how did I recap the story? Did I leave anything out? Was there anything pivotal in there that you'd like to point out?
No, I think you summed it up quite well. That's where we left off, and the great surprise was to come.
Right. So, you had talked a lot about you. I know you're working with a therapist, and a part of being an adoptee is you just live with the fear of abandonment. You usually people that are adopted are real people pleasers. They have a need to try very hard to please everybody, probably because they're afraid that if they don't please that person might leave them. So it comes with issues that people that aren't adopted don't really understand. So I think that was a big part of you being resistant to reaching out. You had known, I remember that you had done a little detective work, and you had a friend at the library. Remember, you had a friend at the library. Tell that story.
Well, I have a friend who lives in Crystal Lake, which is where my father's family lived for a long time. And I had seen an obituary. I was looking for a photograph of my father online, and I found an obituary, a small one from the Chicago Tribune. And at the end of it, it mentioned if donations were to be made, they could be made to a particular church in the area. And I happened to tell that to a friend of mine who lived in Crystal Lake. And it turns out he had gone to that church, and he thought he knew people there. And then he had also, in the obituary, mentioned that my father had worked at the Crystal Lake Library as a volunteer for many years. And my friend he said that he had used that library a lot and had worked with that customer service desk a lot. And he probably had met him, obviously without knowing who that was. So there were ironies piling up on top of each other. And that was one way that led to this connection.
Right. I remember you wanted a picture. You really and you had a small picture, but as an adoptee, you want to see, where do I get my eyes, my nose, my mannerisms? I know that you're really curious about that.
Yeah, and that's what another thing that people don't understand about adoptees, we don't look like anybody.
Right.
We don't
Except
sound like
biological
anybody.
children.
We don't share any traits with anybody in our adopted families, and that's something that you don't think about every day, but it's there. And when you do, when I got the very first adult photo of my father, the person that handed it to me said, "You look just like him."
Wow.
I can't tell you what that meant.
Yeah. Oh.
And now there's a joke going around here that I have the nose, the same nose as the family does, and we do have the same nose. And in our early conversations, some of my siblings have remarked that I look like him, and that's just an incredibly moving thing to hear.
Right.
And it never gets old either.
So Robin, our client liaison, who's great at what she does, she reached out to a sibling. And did Robin contact you? How did that work? How did you find out that, hey, I've got my foot in the door here?
Robin told me she had talked to one of the siblings, and she had, and don't exactly remember the details of it, but it wound up that guy called me, one of the 8 siblings. We arranged a time to call each other. We first communicated by email, arranged a time to talk, and we talked the first time for an hour.
Oh, wow.
And I was just astonished and delighted, and I can't describe the feeling of making that contact. And one of the very first things he told me was that they had all talked together beforehand and agreed to accept this guy.
Well, let's stop there for a second. Let's stop there for a second, because I would like our viewers to see just how successful that phone call went with Robin. I would say that it was pretty successful. Oh, we got everybody. Yay! So, meet John's siblings.
And that's not even everybody's. There's 3 more that weren't able to make it. Yeah.
So, John, where do you fall in age? Are you the oldest?
I'm the big brother. Yeah, I'm the oldest.
And so, who's after John? That's here. Who's after John?
Who's the oldest?
I think that would be
after John.
The next 3 are not here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Bill is next of those.
And
I would be the next.
Okay.
And after
Just
Bill,
send them in order.
it's Jean.
And then Jean, and then Paul, and then Mia and Guy.
What a beautiful family.
There you go.
Yeah.
So there is the first sibling that Robin contacted was Mary Kay, and Mary Kay couldn't be here tonight. So she was the first one in the door. Paul, can you tell us how you got wind of what was going on?
Sure. Well, Mary Kay had sent out something of a bit of a cryptic email suggesting that there was something afoot and some guy who was claiming to be our brother, which, caused a little bit of disturbance in the force, the Engelman force. We were like, okay, well, what's all this about? And then we had a meeting, and she discussed the scenario, how it unfolded, and then we basically just came to the agreement that, well, if this is real, then he's in.
And so
let's embrace his journey and
awesome.
Help him.
He had a niece and a nephew test, I believe, and that's how that had to have been. Which one of y'all's children tested on Ancestry? Are they here?
So my daughter Sarah
Okay, Bill.
Actually, we worked together at the time. I have since moved. We were in Colorado and moved back to Wisconsin. We worked together. I had heard about or got the email from Mary Kay, and I knew that Sarah had been on Ancestry. So I immediately just went to Sarah and said, "Did you ever get any kind of indication that there was some match or anything?" And she said, "Well, I get stuff all the time. I never really pay much attention to it." And I go, "Well, could you check and see?" And he popped up as 16%. John was there, and I didn't really know what that meant at the time. 16% kind of seemed like a lot. But we didn't really know for sure. And as time goes on, of course, we realize, well, that's a pretty close match as these things go. So
that helps in your mind solidify. That helps in your mind solidify that this is a real thing. There's science.
Well, yeah, and of course, then when we had our conference together, which we are always do in these kind of situations, well, not that there's anything like this, but in family situations, we'll all get together and talk about it. And we decided that, well, one of us is going to go ahead and do Ancestry, and there should be a confirmation there for sure. And that's how it turned out.
So Jean, I want to hear from you. What was it like for you getting a phone call, hearing that, hey, I might have a half brother out there? Were you skeptical? Did you think scam? Did you think, what does he want?
Not really. I mean, that wasn't my first. I mean, the first thought was just complete shock, honestly. I mean, it took a while to even process the concept. So I wasn't overly skeptical, but, we did do a little due diligence on our end, as Bill described. And then, after I got over the shock, it was more like I felt a lot of empathy towards John and whatever his journey was, which we only knew a little bit of it then. Even though I was shocked and maybe didn't entirely welcome the idea 100% initially, like I said, I had a lot of empathy and, wanted to, as everybody said, just embrace him and, not to even accept, that's not even the right word, just embrace him in the family.
So Mia, tell me, was your dad, John was conceived before your mom and him were together, correct?
Yes.
Because I know that could be a big battle for a lot of our people.
I would say that was my very, very first thought was, I hope he's not younger than our oldest sibling, because that would open up a can of worms that would be emotionally trying. And fortunately, that was not the case. So beyond that, as a parent of an adoptive child myself, I understand the trauma of adoption and the feelings, a deep sense of loss and abandonment and that can come with that. And I just thought, what a blessing that he was able to identify his father. Did not realize that I was really gaining a brother. I didn't think of it that way at first, but now I feel like what a blessing, because John is such a phenomenal person as we are starting to get to know him. And so, I feel like it's a blessing for our family. And now we're not 8 anymore, we're 9.
That's amazing.
Do y'all have all the same mother, or do you have? You do.
We do. Yes,
okay.
we do.
Wow.
Yeah.
That many siblings with the same parents. We don't see that a lot. So that's amazing. That's really great to hear.
You brought up a good point. Do you think that if John was younger than Bill, that would have changed things for you? Or do you think that you still would have embraced him the same? It's kind of coulda, woulda, shoulda.
Yeah, me personally, I would hope, but I just think it would be a little complicated. But I personally feel like we would still be here in this wonderful place. It just would be a little more to unpack.
Right.
I was talking to some of the siblings about that very fact, and that the conditions for this to be successful were really kind of ideal because all the primary actors in the story, with the exception of John, have long since passed. So none of us are really bringing any baggage into this relationship. And the only one that would be John, who appears to have unpacked a lot of that over his journey. So it's really kind of ideal that this ideal circumstances for this.
The timing.
Good outcome.
Yeah.
If I might interrupt, the main reason it was successful is that these are magnificent people. They love each other. They respect each other. They work together. They're different personalities, but they are just so magnificent, kind and loving. It was a natural. I think it was a natural thing for them to do, because that's the way they are.
That's
Well,
amazing.
if I may comment, I when we met John for the first time, we all decided to meet up at a restaurant, and we each had connected with him either through text or for phone call, but we hadn't met him yet. So we decided to meet up at a restaurant, and John came with his wife, Darlene. And as soon as we met him, I can speak for myself, is I saw my dad. His temperament, the way he talks, is very similar to our father. And what I told him then is that one of the reasons why it has worked out so well is also John himself, because John came into this and he made it very clear in the beginning, through even before we met, that he wasn't expecting anything. He just wanted to connect, and whatever we were open to was fine with him. So he made it easy for us to be open to him. So I give John a lot of credit as well.
That's amazing. So tell me more, John, about meeting your siblings for the first time. Were you nervous going into it?
A bit, but not really badly nervous. And it became so easy because as soon as Darlene and I got out of the car, Paul and Guy were there. They met us because I've got some mobility issues, so they came out to meet us there after we parked the car, and they walked right up and hugged me.
Wow.
So after that, no, I wasn't nervous at all. After we had sat down to eat for a period of time, I had to stop and just breathe and feel it.
Wow.
It was amazing.
That's the first time you've had a hug from a sibling, right? Because you don't have any adopted siblings.
No. I went from being a so-called only child to now. If people watch the other video, they'll learn that there are other siblings out there on my mother's side. So now I'm only one of 12.
Wow. Careful what you wish for, right?
Yeah, it's amazing.
Lucky to be able to remember everybody's name.
I've been studying. I've been working.
Sure.
So how often, so y'all live pretty close in proximity to each other, all of y'all?
We're all southern Wisconsin, northern Illinois, within an hour and a half of Chicago, hour and a half, 2 hours maybe.
I have a feeling y'all's holidays are going to look a lot different this year,
Yeah.
especially for John.
I just moved to Wisconsin, and I'm probably the closest now. He is in maybe 15, 20 minutes away.
Wow.
Yep.
So I expect we'll probably see a lot of each other.
We
have not met. My wife Sandy and I have not met John and Darlene yet. I'm looking forward to it tomorrow night at a restaurant in Antioch.
Oh, wow.
Very much looking forward to it. We've been, we just moved, as I said, from Colorado. So we were out there in Colorado while all this was going on. And, we're like, I want to get there. We got to get there. And, meet these wonderful people. So
And
Paul,
and
my
I,
next question is for you, Paul. I'm curious, if your dad was still alive, what do you think he would say about all this?
Oh, that's an interesting question. I think he would. I mean, he was a very gracious, thoughtful person. I'm sure he would be very accepting of it. You think about the story. I mean, I personally think about, okay, what were the circumstances of John's origin? And, I don't want to get too much detail, but, where was Dad in his life at that point? And then, one of the things is that, he, by all indications, was unaware of John's existence. And so, that again doesn't really impact our view of our father. To us, he's always been and always will be a gracious, kind man, So I'm sure he would have been accepting.
Jean, tell us about your dad. I want to know more about him. Tell me about like his job and his mannerisms and what you looked up to him about. And I wanted to know more about John's dad because I just love John so much.
Most of his life he worked in the advertising and had various jobs in that field and kind of worked his way up to executive level, although he did not graduate from college. I don't think it was that important at that era. And as Paul said, he was kind of, I don't know, sort of had a little bit of a debonair flair. He was mild-mannered. Just, I don't know. What do the rest of you feel?
Well, I would say on his
in his expressions, I will say that he was more of a thoughtful person, but not an emotionally expressive person.
I would say that he was, when he walked into a room, both he and our mother, I think people took notice. They had a presence about them.
They did. Both of them did.
As John mentioned, our father volunteered at the library, and there's sort of a little bit of a tribute to him in the library, and they under his name it says a gentleman and a scholar, and I always think that was very appropriate. He's very intelligent, very, very well read. He read books constantly, and I have to say, I think that our father would be very proud of the person who John is, and what he's accomplished in his life and what he has overcome emotionally and what he's built, the family he's built and everything. I personally think he'd be very proud of the person he is.
Oh,
so I'll say a little note about you. He was a terrific singer. He had a great voice, and he was kind of in his younger years a kind of a song and dance guy. I've seen photos of him performing on stage, doing basically song and dance stuff, and so he had that flair about him with that too. A little drama, and like everybody says, he had a really debonair character.
Yeah.
He also was a Civil War expert.
Oh, wow.
He read volumes and volumes about Abraham Lincoln, that time period, and he actually he attempted to write a book about I think is the only Civil War general that was dishonorably discharged or something like that, and Fitz John Porter. And he got, this was before internet, and doing research was pretty challenging. So he ended up getting a lot of information. At one point he just decided it wasn't quite enough for a book, but he ended up doing presentations at Civil War roundtables in the area many times. that was his.
Sounds like a really interesting guy.
Yeah, right.
John, do you, when they're talking about him, do you see any do you have any musical ability? Do you have
That's the one thing I absolutely did not inherit.
like,
I only sing when it's time to clear the room.
Another thing is he was a great athlete. He played a lot of sports, although his eyesight was really poor, so that hurt his what he could do. But he went to Sullivan High School in Chicago, and in the yearbook they would put the name of books under each kid's name that related to them, and his was Touchdown because he scored the first official touchdown in Sullivan school history.
Wow.
so cool.
Sounds like quite a guy.
Can I add one thing? So kind of relevant to this conversation. In his elderly or older period, he did a lot of research on his own family, reaching out back to his heritage from Austria-Hungary. And that was all pre-internet. So it was all
the library, the microfiche days.
Agencies and churches and bureaus of vital statistics. And I have a binder about 5 inches thick of all the things that he found out about his own family. So I think you might appreciate what you do.
Yeah, that's got to be a gold mine for John, since he's, this is like a whole new branch for him, right? So it's, you've got the instant connections to know your, heritage on that line without now having to go do all the research for a whole new line. Looks like you've got it handed to you on a binder. That's awesome. Heidi knows. I did the research back in those days too, and I used to drag Heidi down to the library, and we do the same thing, looking on the microfiche. And so we really appreciate the value of the time and the energy, and it takes heart to
Passion.
really do that and do it right and do it well and collect it and save it so that they could pass it on in their family. So that's an amazing thing that he did for everybody, but especially John, just being added to the family. He's got all that right there. That's cool.
And his genealogy charts are handwritten out in beautiful script.
By his father.
A terrific
That's
handwriting.
another thing. He had beautiful handwriting. I mean,
Wow.
absolutely.
That's really amazing, especially for a male.
I always thought his handwriting looked like it belonged at the bottom of the Declaration of Independence. It was
Oh, wow.
one of the great signatures.
That from history teacher.
So, guys, who do you think, John, out of all the male siblings, which one looks the more like your father? I'm looking at Bill, and I'm thinking Bill and John look the most alike. No? What do y'all think?
Guy, probably. I'd say Guy. As a,
Well,
as
John,
a young man, Guy for sure.
we all thought Guy did, but now John does.
Yeah, for sure John does.
For me, John, maybe I'm the younger version of Dad, and John.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Got you. How young are you now, John? You don't mind me asking. You're
I'm-
like
I'm 79.
79. I thought you were getting close to 80. How amazing that you were able to meet all of your family. I mean,
It's beyond description. I've long since run out of words to try to describe how that feels, but it's been magnificent, and it's so special. I couldn't have dreamed ever that this would happen.
who knew that when you came across DNAngels that day that you stumbled upon us, however that was? Who knew that fast forward that this would be going on? Did you ever in your wildest dreams imagine this?
Never. I had all but given up hope of finding my father after knowing my mother had disappeared without ever any hint to anybody who he might have been. No clue whatsoever. I figured, well, I joined a bunch of DNA organizations just on the odd chance that maybe somehow, but I never really believed it would happen. And here we are.
And then enter Jennifer.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
I said, and then enter Jennifer.
Oh, Jennifer,
DNA
sweet Jennifer. She was magnificent. She still is.
She is.
DNA is really a powerful tool.
It is. And you folks have done just wonders for so many people, but I just feel so special about what you've done. It just, there's no words of that would satisfy.
No. Imagine, so we've solved 6,200 cases now. I don't know if your siblings are aware of that. 6,200 people since 2019 that we've done this.
That's amazing.
It's pretty amazing. Now, of course, not everybody has the same happy ending as John.
Well, that's why it feels so special to me, because I know that so many of these things don't always work out well. And this one is beyond just,
Right.
it
And
couldn't be.
I want to point this out before I forget. Stay tuned, because we have another surprise that we have in our pocket that we haven't said yet. So once we get the siblings off the stage here, not yet, but I just want y'all to stay tuned for that, because it's pretty exciting. And development happened last night, but I'm not even sure if your siblings are aware of. John, do they know? Don't say what it is, but do your siblings know what happened last night?
No, I don't know. No.
Okay, so y'all have to hang out and hear about the development. Don't worry, you don't have a new sibling.
Yeah.
Everyone's welcome.
Yeah.
That's right.
Once you get up to like, what's 10, 11, 12, you know?
The more the merrier.
Who knows how many?
All right. I just can't stop smiling, looking at all of these beautiful faces that you're one family that have all just opened your arms and embraced, this new guy, and it just makes me so happy. And I know, anybody that watches this, but especially, as doing the work that we do, like, as Jennifer said, this is our why, seeing these faces, seeing these reunions, knowing people have their answers. And you guys are just like amazing in the way that you handled it, and the way everybody has to process it, and everybody does it a little differently. But the fact that you all came together, so many of you, and came to an agreement. It's almost like a jury. You didn't have one person holding out, or, you guys just came together, talked about it, opened your hearts and your arms, and, met him, gave him his first hug from his sibling. I mean, it's just so amazing.
Yeah, honestly, I thought of myself, and I think it's a tribute to our parents, our mother and our father. They were both phenomenal people. And yeah.
And I also want to say too, I hope that this illustrates to the people in our community, the adopted community, that good things can happen, because there's so much heartbreak out there and so much sadness, and I hear so many feel like they want to give up and it will never be better, and their lives are ruined. And that's doesn't have to be that way. It can be this way. This can happen.
John, I'd like you to speak to the adoptees that were in your situation, where we were with the show that we did last season, when you were afraid to reach out, when you were afraid of rejection. Speak to those people that, I have a niece-nephew match, but I'm scared about reaching out to them, afraid of rejection. Do you have a different perspective now?
I do now. And, Rick expressed it on the first video. He expressed it very well about, what's the worst that can happen is they say no. But that isn't in an adoptee's mind. It's not logic that makes us behave the way we do. It's experience and trauma. And now looking back, I would like to think I'd do it differently, but I don't know if I would. I really can't say. But
I can say that I'm really glad that the planets and stars and everything aligned that day for us to do it afterwards. Because what we did is, when the the taping was over, we just sat around and chatted for a few minutes. And so Laura, who is our founder, executive director, she said, John, let us reach out for you. Will you let us do that? And John, I think at first he's like, well, let me think about it. But then I think, obviously, I think the next day is when you said, yeah, go ahead and reach out. So I'm just really glad that everything happened the way it did. And even if you hadn't agreed to be a guest on the show in the first place, if you hadn't made that application, this wouldn't have been happening right now. So I'm just really glad that everything worked out the way it did.
Yeah, things fell in place magically.
So Bill, how hard was it to yank your arm to say, hey, come on this YouTube show with us tonight? What were you?
Not hard at all. John put out the invitation, and I think several responded right away that yeah, absolutely. We all, I think, as Jean mentioned, had a tremendous amount of empathy for what he had gone through, and I don't think, I don't want to say that we were all gung ho right from the very beginning, but once we got together and decided that he's part of the family, he's an Engelman, we just all decided to share ourselves with him and I don't think anybody is really holding anything back at this point, as far as I can tell. And it was all, yeah, we're all in, he's one of us. So
does anybody else have anything that I may have left out or that you want to share? Did we cover it all?
I would just say this is as surprising as this all has been. I feel like it's just been a blessing for our family to have John as part of us now. And we're a family and we're excited to get to know him even more. But yeah, it's a blessing for this whole experience for all of us.
Y'all are an amazing family.
I'll just say that what kind of sticks out in my mind is the first interaction with John when we met for dinner. And I was sitting next to him and he was just sitting there smiling and just kind of shaking his head. And I was like, what are you thinking? And he said, I just can't believe it. All these people that look like me, I've never been around anybody else that looked like me. And you're all so kind. And, and he's just such a great guy. And we're thankful for you, the work that you guys do to make this happen and look forward to continuing the journey with John and being part of our family.
Well, like Cindy said, y'all are our why. We often have people say, how do you become a search angel? I'm like, well, you really need to think about that because it's long hours for $0.
But it's a big reward, though.
I'd like to add one more thing if I can.
Sure, sure.
Well, something that Paul said triggered a memory of my father. And my father, he wasn't a real emotional guy, but the one time, the times that he would get most emotional was when he would get together with our family. And he would always, when we would have a meal together, Thanksgiving, Christmas, he would talk about the gratitude of all of us being here together. And he would get emotional. He would see him almost welling up. And so when Paul was just mentioning that about how John seemed to be that way, so there's another example of their connection that, they both, John and my father, I think, and all of us are really, know how important family connection is and keeping the family together and being close. So that was what triggered in my head.
He's so proud of y'all. I just know it.
Thank you so much.
I just can't stop smiling.
All right. Well, thank you all for being here, taking the time out of your day and just sharing your stories and your perspective and just yourselves, the sharing of yourselves and your beautiful family with us. It just brings so much joy to our hearts. And I know everybody watching this is going to have the same big smile that we've had.
Well, thank you for doing what you do.
Thank
Thank
you.
you guys for bringing John to us.
Yes.
Our pleasure.
Yes.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Surprise.
John, I think we're going to keep you on.
Wow.
You don't get to go yet, John.
Aren't they great?
They are.
Amazing.
Aren't,
I want to be adopted. Are you kidding?
You hit like the family jackpot, John.
well, you know, both we have two children, and they both say they won the spouse lottery. And so I think I won the family lottery.
I'm so glad everything worked out for you. And we were talking, so we had a group chat going on this morning. I don't know if your ears have been burning lately, because you have a lot of fans and you have a lot of angels in your corner right now. But
Wow.
we were just talking about how this could have happened to a nicer guy, that we were just, and so that leads me to our next bit. So John, do you want to tell our viewers what happened last night with the DNA match that you were never able to identify?
Well, the very highest match of all of my matches was a woman. I won't share the name, but it was a woman who
On the
I couldn't.
maternal side. She's on the mom's side, not the dad's side. So
Yeah, it was my highest match of all, and we did find out it was on my mom's side eventually, but couldn't find her. I hired a private detective almost 2 years ago to seek her out, and yeah, that was unsuccessful. And you guys found her yesterday, and yesterday I got a message from her through Ancestry.
how is she related to you, John?
She is my half sister.
Amazing.
So after my mother left me, she married a gentleman and had two children. She abandoned them as well. And then evidently went off and sometime later had another child who turned out to be this woman. And I've been trying to get a hold of her. I've been messaging her for a couple of years now, and she had not responded. And now I know why. But anyway, she did respond yesterday after you guys had contacted her. And I have every hope that we will be able to connect.
Right. Well, she had just never checked her messages, right? So she was an Ancestry match with just a name, a common name, and no identifying information. That's why she was so hard to track down. But, you know, the DNAngels are like the CIA, which is 4 initials. We could just about find anybody. And so that happened last night. That's amazing.
So the circle now has been almost completely closed. The only thing left is for the other 2 siblings, the other 2 children of my mother. I hope to make contact with them. I have made contact with a relative of theirs, but I guess they're concerned about bad memories resurfacing if we contacted. So maybe that'll work out as well at some point. But the loop, as far as I know it, has been closed now by you guys.
Have you had a conversation with the new sister yet?
No, just she sent me a message saying she looks forward to, future contact. There's news that she is not aware of yet as well that has to be taken care of before we go further. But
it just happened last night, so in time.
Yes, it's all brand new. It's all fresh, and once again, it had to stop and catch my breath because another just astonishing event brought by DNAngels. I mean, you guys are magic.
You asked for some siblings, didn't you?
I'm sorry?
You asked for some siblings, didn't you?
What? Careful what you asked for. Right? You couldn't have asked for better. Couldn't have dreamed of asking for what I've already received.
Well, you're
It's
very,
just
very
amazing.
deserving of it. I couldn't, like I said earlier, it couldn't have happened to a nicer guy.
Well, I'm blushing.
What does your wife Darlene say about all this? Is she so
Oh,
happy for you?
she's so thrilled because, well, we've been married 54 years. So if anybody knows my story, she sure does. And she gets to see all the ups and downs, that we go through.
Yeah.
And so she's just thrilled. And, they have accepted her, as have my other cousins on my mother's side, the others that I was united with earlier. They have all accepted both of us unconditionally and with love, and just it's really, it's heartwarming to the max. Unbelievable. So this is
we just love hearing these stories and following them, and every little update, and every little feature, it's what feeds us, I am curious though. I remember at the end of your last episode, actually, I remember you said it's not over yet. And
Yeah.
Little did we know, it really wasn't over. But I also remember you saying that at the time, your children really didn't have an interest, just a lack of interest, at that time. But you said maybe after this episode, they may change their mind. I'm wondering now that they've seen the episode and you have all these newfound developments and family that you reached out to. And so now they have aunts and uncles like there, are they still like, well, whatever, or have they changed at all on their interest?
I'm not aware of any changes. It's not that they're not interested, I don't think. But we haven't really explored in depth, how they feel about it. We have to understand too that my adoptive parents were wonderful people.
Oh yeah.
And they were wonderful grandparents to our children. So they don't have the need, they don't have the void that I had.
Right. They don't have a hole that they need to fill. They're content with what they have, not necessarily looking for more. Sense.
Yes. Yeah. And I've long since tried to stop basing any of my happiness on how other people feel about things. It's not, obviously I'm very concerned about how my children feel, but that can't affect how this goes.
Right.
And how they feel is how they feel. And they are, that's their thing. And I know they're on my side.
Yeah, I'm sure seeing you happy and the joy that it's bringing you, helping you feel, have the answers and, feeling more complete. I'm sure them seeing that in you has to bring, happiness to them, even if it's not something they're looking for. Seeing that in you has to bring them some joy.
Well, my desire really is that more adoptees can either feel this way or believe that they can feel this way.
Yeah.
Because that's there's so much sorrow out there, so much unhappiness, and they need more encouragement and belief, that things can turn out well.
Right. I do remember something else you said in the last episode is that you used to always believe the worst thing was going to happen. You never really allowed yourself to think good things could come to you. And I think your perspective may have perhaps changed a little bit on that.
Over the years, it has. I used to think that way. I used to be that way. I'm gradually, it's probably embedded in my nature, but I've changed a lot in that regard. And I'm living proof.
You are.
So, yeah.
John, my hope is that in season 3, we get to have you back again, but this time with your new sister.
Oh, wouldn't that be something? Well, with my new brother and 2 sisters on my mother's side,
Right.
that'd be fun to have all 3 of them.
Wow.
Indeed.
Yeah. Well, we'll see.
We're going to wrap up this show. John, thank you so much for becoming our client and coming to us and trusting us with your, it's raw and it's real and it's your life.
And being open and sharing your journey, all the way.
Well, thank you so much, you guys. You've done wonders. It's been a life-changing experience. These last couple of years have been truly life-changing.
Our honor and pleasure. And I'm sure Jennifer is going to be dying to watch this, and she'll be reaching out to you very soon.
I miss her tonight. She's been magnificent. Just magnificent.
She's amazing. Cindy and I are going on a cruise with her in January. So that shows you how much we love her.
That's how much we love her.
We'll have to find a way to meet in person.
That would be amazing. Yeah, that'd be cool. Well, thank you, John, so much. We'll stay in touch with you, okay?
Thanks so much.
Not getting rid of us yet.
Okay. I'll be around.
All right. Bye. Oh, my cheeks are going to be hurting from smiling so much. It almost makes me sad that I don't ever get a message in my inbox on Ancestry saying I have a new sibling match. I would just love to it's just makes me, I'm speechless.
Yeah. It was just a real pleasure just to see the family, and they're, you could tell, they like, well, he's my brother. We love him. Bring him up. Bring it on.
Right. But I like the way, because as sisters, and we have other sisters too, but I like how they sat together and they're like, no one's going to make a decision or do anything without us having a collaborative effort and letting everybody weigh in. And I'm sure, you and I, even though we are alike, we're also not alike in certain areas. And I'm sure that there were some siblings that were probably like, what does this guy want? And this is just, I don't want to invite crazy into my life. We don't know him. We don't know his personality. And then there's the other sibling that's like, he has a right to know his biological truth. And this is, so I would love to have been a fly on the wall when that conversation was going on.
Yeah. Well, I'm just amazed that they can have, 8 come together and have a conversation. Like, Yeah, it was amazing. That was just amazing. I'm so glad. I'm very sad Jennifer missed it. I really am. I know she would have been here if she could, but I'm glad that I got to be a part of it and try to fill in for her a little bit. So
you did a great job, sis.
Well, so did you, sis.
Thanks. Okay, well, we're at our hour, so we're going to wrap it up. Thanks, guys, for tuning in. As always, please don't forget to hit the subscribe button, like the video, and if you could, give us a call, give us some feedback. I would like to know what would you like to see more of. We love positive feedback or constructive criticism, whatever you feel, but we just would love to hear from y'all. And gosh, it's just been an amazing show. We'll catch you next time. Bye.
Bye.